Ladies and gentlemen, thrilled to have you here for another epic debate. This is going to be a lot of fun, folks. Want to let you know if it's your first time here to Modern Day Debate, we are a channel, a nonpartisan channel that hosts debates on science, politics, and religion while trying to be as neutral as possible. We also want to let you know we really do want you to feel welcome no matter what walk of life you are from, whether you be vegan, Christian, atheist, Democrat, Republican, you name it. We really do hope you feel welcome. And also a reminder, we will have, for the first time in a while, a good old flat earth debate that you will see pictured on the bottom right of your screen. That will be tomorrow night. So if you'd like a reminder of some of the future debates, feel free to hit that subscribe button and that little notification bell. And with that, very excited to introduce our guests. I think this is, I just realized I've got your pictures flipped, so I'm sure the live chat's giving me heck for that. But don't worry, you got it switched in 3, 2, 1. So very excited, folks. This is going to be a lot of fun as we have a really interesting debate. And I have linked both of the speakers down in the description, folks. So that way, if you are listening and you're like, I like that, I want to hear more, you can hear more by clicking on those links that I put down there for you. And with that, want to let you know that the format is going to be pretty easy going. So what we're going to do is have a roughly 5 to 10 minute opening statement from each speaker, followed by open conversation for about 50 to 60 minutes, and then Q&A for about 25, 30 minutes. So if you have a question, feel free to fire it into the old live chat. And if you tag me with @ModernDayDebate, it makes it easier for me to make sure I get every single question in that Q&A list. Super chat is also an option, in which case you can make a comment toward one of the speakers, and they, of course, would get a chance to respond to that objection. And it'll also push your objection or question to the top of the list for the Q&A. So with that, very excited. Richard volunteered to go first, so we appreciate it. It's going to be a lot of fun. And Richard, thrilled to have you back. If I had not mentioned, folks, I put both of the links for our guests down in the description, so feel free to check those out. And Richard, glad to have you. Thanks so much for being here. The floor is all yours.
All right, so I just see veganism as a very obviously morally superior position. If you stick to a vegan lifestyle, you end up causing less exploitation, suffering, and death of animals. I think most people would agree that we should have sympathy towards animals. It's not good to cause their suffering. I think most people, at least on some level, would agree that it's wrong to kill any animal unnecessarily. So I would just ask you, why is it okay to slit animals' throats open? I would also mention that I see veganism as a logical extension of human rights, and I think most people would agree that we should be logically consistent with our principles and apply our principles fairly and consistently. So I don't see any way of justifying killing animals for food without somehow taking away human rights. So I would also pose a challenge to you. Name the trait that is lacking in animals that, if also lacking in a human being, would justify killing and eating a human being.
You bet. Thanks for that. Short and sweet, and we will kick it over to Kaz for his opening.
Okay, thank you, Richard, for agreeing to this debate. Thank you, James, for having me, and everybody for tuning in. I do have a prepared statement I was going to read. I don't know if I feel that I need to do that now because the question posed to me. Let me go ahead and just read it, okay? I'll start after my introduction. You guys know that I am Kaz, and I am here representing Factitionalism, the Factitionalist network, and the party that I have founded. I host my own show called Contentions, and my goal is to build a community based on my belief that facts exists. And as I understand it, veganism is not just a diet, but a philosophy which places animals on equal footing with humans, that it recognizes their sentience, especially our mammalian cousins. Its adherents empathize with animals and seek to eliminate animal suffering and exploitation by promoting cultural change. Let me make my caveats and concessions up front. In line with my moral framework, I applaud veganism, for it is indeed a superior technology of community. While many man-made communities increase inclusivity up to all humans, veganism takes us a step further and brings animals into the fold. And I do believe this to be a positive step toward perpetual survival, though not the final step. Whether it be aliens from distant worlds or far-flung futures or alternate dimensions, whether it be the emergence of high sentience from our fellow Earthlings or a speciation event of our human descendants, eventually humans will not be the only intelligent life on the planet. And any morality that is not designed to process this eventuality with acceptance will have to be replaced, which is why most, if not all, moralities today are inferior to veganism. One argument that is brought up by vegans that cannot be dismissed out of hand is the fact that energy transfer from up the food chain is totally inefficient when the consumption of animals is brought into the mix. Eating animals indeed wastes energy. It is a middleman for our calories, and from a purely conservative utilitarian viewpoint, it cannot be defended. Finally, the health benefits are real, and while there may be downsides, it is difficult to imagine that they amount to enough to invalidate the findings of the scientific studies which actually show improvements in health by changing to a plant-based diet. So let me just go ahead and get into my main points of contention with veganism. It is important to allow for some degree of disutility in order to actually maximize utility. For example, engaging in entertainment and frills does not produce advancement towards any goal. When engaged in production, one might argue that it's a waste of time. However, a more comprehensive look at the situation reveals its necessity. For without respite, the mind grows lethargic, production drops dramatically, and the net efficiency is diminished. By participating in entertainment, taking respite, one recharges their mind's resiliency and allows for even greater potential for production. To the point, just because something has more efficiency does not mean it is the path of greatest utility. While health is indeed important and should be promoted, liberty is necessary for innovation, which is necessary to overcome the barriers to survival that lay before us. Therefore, liberty as a principle must be addressed in balance with utility. And indeed, there are gaps in the utility, which I'll like to address real quick. There is what I've learned is the choline crisis, that we have evolved to eat meat as part of our diets, and our bodies require certain nutrients which are not found in abundance in plant sources. A non-animal source of choline, which is the highest content, is the shiitake mushrooms, 58 milligrams per serving, which is 11% of your recommended daily value, meaning you need to eat at least 9 servings of mushrooms, potatoes, wheat, or kidney beans just to make up for what you would have gotten out of 3 eggs or about 2 servings of beef. Supplementation requires artificial or processed nutrients. Whether cause for concern or not, people have the right to choose not to consume artificial or processed nutrition. And then I want to address our moral responsibility to the animals that we have co-opted. These animals have entered into an unspoken pact with humanity, perhaps not of their own free will, but their free will is not established as even a factor. And as a matter of fact, ours is up for debate as well. They receive protection from the elements by our barns, pens, and coops. They receive food without having to compete for it with other creatures, without having to live in fear of predators, protection for an assured percentage of their young. They receive what is essentially a guaranteed one-way ticket to the future. They have hitched their evolutionary wagons to ours as we march forward through time. For thousands of years, they have used us as their means of survival. They are ill-equipped to survive in the wild at this point. Ending our husbandry guarantees their extinction. I have heard it proposed that we may set up sanctuaries for them, but this is untenable. We then put ourselves in a situation where we have to take on all responsibility for them, but receive nothing in return. And this lack of reciprocity will invariably lead to neglect of said duties and eventually still result in the extinction of these creatures. We have invasive species management. Goats, hogs, deer, many animals are invasive species. They are unfettered reproduction and insatiable appetites devastate ecosystems. If not farmed, they will still need to be slaughtered. That puts us in a position of murderers. How cruel to relegate our barnyard pals to the dog-eat-dog toil of the suffering of the wild, and then starve, and then still have to kill them. But their bodies will go to waste or feed the bugs or increase their numbers overall. If we must kill, better to kill and eat than just kill, if you agree. I'll skip that. I think I'll skip that one too. We have evidence which suggests that plants think, feel, count, and communicate. There is evidence that they utilize fungal fibers like an internet. They cry at frequencies imperceptible to animals. These creatures live for thousands and thousands of years, growing into colonies as large as nations. It is our animal bias, our metabolic rate, our molecular clocks, which prejudice us against empathizing with their experience. They are our evolutionary cousins too, and their lives are valuable too. There is no justification for placing the suffering of animals arbitrarily above the suffering of plants. It is open speciesism. We are choosing to empathize with creatures based on their similarity to ourselves. And if we accept this spectral paradigm of worthiness, by what logic do we now draw the line at animals? I find this aspect of the philosophy to be a little bit incoherent. If we cannot justify some line, how do we survive? And then how do we serve our utility to the life forms that benefit from our existence? This puts us in a self-destructive logical spiral. We paralyze ourselves and cannot justify any consumption whatsoever. Indeed, there are some that take this stance, but my moral framework is based on the common fact of all life, seeking survival perpetually. I think that we do need to alter our practices dramatically. Animals used by humans must allow these animals. We must allow these animals to use us as well. We must provide for them a lifestyle of comfort and peace. They must be free of all suffering and given the opportunity to advance and determine their own fate. I am in favor of requiring the meat to be restricted to animals who have reached a species-specific age, indicating that they have lived a full life. That they be euthanized painlessly and only then consumed. We must end our consumption of veal and young animals entirely. We could transition to a post-animal commodity system where meat can only be obtained by husbandry or hunting, thus ending corporate capitalist practices. And I just want to address the question that you had asked me at the beginning, and then I'll go ahead and be done with my opening. You wanted me to name the trait, right?
Yeah, I'd like you to.
Each animal is a member of a species community, and that community has a certain utility to our goals of survival. Members of the human race have a utility that is to that goal as well, regardless of their specific situation and abilities, because there are members of our species that will benefit. Excuse me, one second. Because they are members of our species, that which benefits them helps them to thrive, teaches us to help each other thrive. If you could find a totally kinless human with no intellectual capacity and a violent, murderous tendency, it is still immoral to murder and eat that person because his utility to our goal is not served. His example serves as an opportunity for all scientific disciplines to uncover facts about how they are and why they are the way they are, which will provide us with invaluable insight into the mechanisms which resulted in that situation. This benefits all of us, especially those of our future selves who will one day have a family member in a similar situation. This is what I call fourth dimensional thinking. And there I yield my time.
Thank you very much. We'll jump right into the open convo. Floor is yours, guys.
Okay, so I listed off some of the arguments you made. So let's just go through them one by one. So you mentioned disutility. So there are activities that we have that don't necessarily have any sort of positive utility, but they give us some sort of mental break, some sort of enjoyment that allows us to be more productive, like watching movies, playing video games, that sort of thing. Okay, so why does slitting open an animal and then cutting it open into pieces and eating its flesh, how does that fall under that category? Like, couldn't you say that I could get that same sort of positive utility out of murdering a person if I was like a sadistic psychopath?
The killing has to be in line with the eating for nutritional value. And I agree that the slitting of the throat, the pain and any suffering entailing that is immoral and should never be done. And I would even agree that we perhaps should not kill animals until they've reached a certain age where it is more moral to kill them. But I don't find, the thing is, they're not people. And because they are not people, they have a different utility to us. Same with bacteria. If you say that it's not okay to mess with the genetics of an animal, then why is it okay to mess with the genetics of a bacteria to make the vitamin B12 that we need to supplement when we can't get enough of it for meat eating?
Okay, wait, you're jumping from, like, you're combining all sorts of different topics. So I'm just asking a very simple question. Like, you're talking about disutility, and I don't know if that's a proper term, because I do think there is a utility in just personal enjoyment. You don't necessarily have to build something that will better the human race. Like, I think just having some leisure time to enjoy yourself, there is utility to that. But how does, like, violently murdering another creature when you don't have to, how would that possibly fit into that category of, I'm just doing it for enjoyment, like it lets me unwind? Like, couldn't I also use that same excuse to murder a human being? Like, okay, I'm a sadistic psychopath, and yeah, I saw some girl down the street, and Thought it'd be fun to like rip her guts open and
But there are
eat
other
her
principles that
corpse.
conflict with that.
Okay, like
That's my point. There other principles conflict with that. The fact that you create an environment where people around you have to now fear for their lives, have to fear for being eaten and whatnot, that just decreases the probability of our entire survival in general.
Okay, well,
Everybody.
okay, well, cool. I can find conflicts with this idea that we should kill and eat animals because for leisure, like it conflicts with other principles you mentioned. You mentioned health. It seems that you, for the most part, agree that veganism has health benefits. On average, they tend to have lower risk of disease and live longer. So I could say, all right, well, if we, instead of killing and eating animals, we switch to eating, I don't know, Beyond Burgers or something, that would give us the same sort of, mouth pleasure, that sort of leisure activity, while not being as bad for our health. I could also mention over 2 million people die per year due to zoonotic diseases. So things like pandemic infections like influenza, coronavirus, Ebola, things like that, those are transferred from animals to humans. And in many of those circumstances, that's due to the food system. So we keep animals in these tight, confined sheds. They're in close contact with one another. And in many cases, they're actually in close contact with other animals, which is how influenza started in the first place. Influenza originated from aquatic birds or semi-aquatic birds, so basically geese. And the influenza virus would spread through the water. A goose would poop in the water, another goose would come by, and then it would infect that animal through water transfer. Well, what ended up happening was people ended up domesticating geese, and they put these geese next to chickens. So now that the virus doesn't have an easy transmission pathway through water, now it has to transmit through air, and the best way to do that is to infect your lungs. So now we have this deadly virus that kills hundreds of thousands of people every year, and there's more strains of influenza popping up due to us breeding these animals. So, okay, you want to have Popeye's chicken because you think it's, some sort of leisure activity, helps you unwind, makes you more productive.
I would be
like
against Popeye's chicken. I would be totally for the shutting down of all fast food that has anything to do with meat. Sure.
Okay, well, anyway.
Let me be specific. I don't want the husbandry that we have today at all whatsoever. All the practices from the ground up can be totally just trashed, if you ask me. Just throw it all away.
Okay, well, regardless.
You want to talk about the actual act of eating the meat. That is what I'm trying to defend here, because we are animals. And like you said, if animal rights are human rights or animal rights, is that what you said?
Okay, I said it's a logical extension of human rights.
Right. So that means that animal rights are human rights as well. We are animals. We have the same rights as other animals. And if you can you name a trait of a lion? Can you name the trait of the lion that allows you to tell the lion not to eat meat?
Okay, well, name a trait. Well, I'm not telling a lion that it can't eat meat.
Aren't you?
No. Okay, so like again, you're kind of, this goes one way. Animal rights are a logical extension of human rights. I don't see why.
Right.
You actually mentioned this. Well, wait, you actually mentioned this, and this is a bit of an issue that I should have brought up. In your opening statement, you said vegans believe that animals are on the same level of humans. I don't believe that. I don't think they should have the same rights. I wouldn't even say they're as valuable or worthy or whatever word you want to call it. Okay. I think we should have different rights, but I think some of these rights, like the right to live, should be granted to animals. But I'm not going to hold animals to the same moral standards, and I'm not going to give animals the same exact rights as human beings, at least not all of them. But
would you say that I have the right to sell my right arm for food?
If you wanted to.
Okay.
Anyway, I still see an issue with this idea of disutility benefit. That was the concept you created, because even if that is the case, I don't see how that wouldn't end up contradicting some of your other values, like goddamn fly, like with nutrition, with public health, just this principle that you even have to brutally murder an animal regardless of how we tackle animal husbandry. Why do we need to do that for some sort of personal pleasure? I mean, again,
we don't do it for pleasure. We do it for food, and we do it because we've already made a pact with their ancestors.
Well, no. You mentioned disutility. So you're using that disutility concept, like just personal pleasure, as an argument to murder an animal. So you're saying just because you personally get pleasure from something, that makes it okay to commit murder?
No, the disutility is specifically there to take our minds off the idea that we have to be utilitarian in every sense, that we have to maximize the absolute efficiency, because that is a great argument that I've heard made by vegans, that if we don't maximize utility, that global warming will take over the world and we'll all be dead and blah blah blah. And I'm totally against you know I what am I trying to say? I believe climate change is real, just so anybody doesn't get confused.
Okay, so why don't you okay, so what you're saying is disutility. You're arguing that we shouldn't try to absolutely maximize utility to the greatest possible extent because that would end up creating more harm than good.
Yes, that myopic view of utility to the maximum
Okay,
possible
cool.
level is
Okay, well,
dangerous.
that's not what I'm arguing, so I don't see how that's even relevant or why you'd bring that up. Like, all
Well,
I'm
that's just my
saying is, well, sure, like, okay, well, why do we have to murder animals when I think it's pretty clear that it creates overall a more negative utility than positive?
The way that we do it now, sure, but it made plenty of
Well, what do you mean
opportunities
the
for
way
us
we
as
do it
well.
now?
The way that we farm animals in, like you were talking about, with the closed quarters, the virus spreading, the cruelty, slitting of the throats, etc. It's just
Okay, well, you have to
very
slit their
cruel.
throats open regardless of how the hell you raise them. Just because they're out in an open field and get to enjoy life, you still have to slit their throat open.
Do you? I don't know that.
Yeah. Well, how do you make meat?
I'm not a butcher.
Okay, well, you have to slit their, like, how does, like, raising an animal inside a tiny confined space versus raising it out in a field, how does that change the way you kill them?
Do they have to be, when you're saying slit their throats, you mean at any point, but do they have to be conscious for this?
Okay, no, you realize even the stunning practices aren't even humane.
Why is that?
Okay, well, humane stunning, there's three ways of humane stunning that I know of that, like, that we here in the US anyway, and in Canada. There's humane, you have to stun an animal before you kill it, and as far as I know, there's just three ways. You can use captive bolt gun, which basically fires a pin into their head, and it has like a ball on the end. And that doesn't actually kill it. It's supposed to stun it so it's not conscious. That doesn't always work, especially with larger animals like cows. Sometimes it doesn't go in all the way. Sometimes their adrenaline is too high and it just puts a hole in their head. Quite often that happens. There's also electricity. So if you've ever talked to anyone who has been electrified to death, it is horrifically painful. There was actually a guy who was on the electric chair 3 times. It was a black guy who was wrongfully committed of a crime. It was like during like the cops just accused him of this because they were racist. He was put on the electric chair 3 times, and the 2 times he was on the chair, he said it hurt like hell. They were just unsuccessful executions. So electrocuting these animals to the point where they're just stunned, they're like incapacitated, horrifically painful. And there's gassing. So they gas them with CO2. Basically, they suffocate to death. And there's actually research on how painful this is for pigs. And there's a slaughterhouse right by me where they use gas chambers to stun these animals.
As far as I know, CO2 as a death is pretty painless for humans, at least.
Horrifically painful. So,
well, I'd have to see that. That'd be good to see.
Okay, sure.
I'd love to see that.
Okay, well, there's actually a video on YouTube of these gas chambers for pigs. So what they did, they set up an experiment. They put the pig in the CO2 gas chamber, slowly suffocated, became incapacitated to the point where it was unconscious. So then they tried to see if the pig could remember the incident. It would not return to that room where it was gassed, even when it was starved for 3 days. They wouldn't feed it any food for 3 days. They put the food in that area where it was gassed, would not return there for 3 whole days because it remembered how horrifically painful it was. And until it was actually starving and thought that it would die, it decided to return to that chamber. So No, all of these methods are horrifically painful, and I'd say like the best case scenario, probably the least painful one is the captive bolt gun, but again, very frequently fails.
Well, that's very unfortunate, and I can't
Okay,
defend
so
that.
why would you do it?
I wouldn't do that.
Okay,
for
well,
sure.
dude,
If
even if
that's
like,
the way it has to be, then sure, fuck it all. If you have to cause pain and suffering like that, then sure, you're absolutely right. If there's any other way to do it, then that's what we need to do.
Okay, well, dude, let's say there was some way to do it where it was absolutely painless. Well, why the hell would you do it? Would you say the Holocaust wasn't so bad because Hitler found some sort of weird, unique way to kill people en masse that was completely painless?
I thought we weren't going to equivocate people with animals.
Okay,
morally.
well, I'm not equivocating. I'm using an analogy to point out that does it really matter even how they die? Would you think Hitler was a better person? No, listen. Would you think better of Hitler if he had come up with some sort of method to kill the Jews that was completely and utterly painless?
Marginally, maybe.
Really?
Marginally. I mean, maybe the slightest bit. I mean, it's like the difference between a guy who murders 20 people versus 10. You think a little bit worse of the guy who murdered 20 people.
Okay, so not a big difference then.
Not a big difference, no.
So then you'd agree that it's horrible regardless.
I agree that there's a lot of horror going on. Totally.
Okay, well, you said there's a very minor difference between killing something when a lot of suffering is involved versus
but
no
that's
suffering.
With people. Now we have to go back to the animals, and now I don't feel that way.
Why is it different in the animal context?
Because they don't feel and think the way we do.
Okay, why do they have to feel and think the way we do? You recognize that they're sentient, right? And they can feel pain, suffering, they want to live?
Sure. And then that's what... They're sentient, sure, to some degree. But there has to be a line somewhere.
To some degree? What do you mean by that?
And it's going to be arbitrary no matter what. If you draw the line at animals, then that's still arbitrary. So why do we draw it there?
Well, because they're sentient, and I wouldn't say that's arbitrary.
How do you know that Pando isn't sentient?
A what?
Pando, the colony of trees that's in, I think, New Zealand or something. Somebody can link it.
Right.
It's 10,000, 100,000 years old or something like that. It's the biggest single organism on the planet. How do you know that isn't sentient?
Because it doesn't have a brain or nervous system.
So how do you know that brains and nervous systems are required for sentience?
Okay, do you have any evidence that brains and nervous systems are not required for sentience? Do you even know what sentience is?
I have evidence that neurological function is mimicked by plants.
Okay, but do you understand what sentience is?
I understand that sentience is an emergent property of a network.
Okay, do you know what sentience is?
Yes,
define it.
I just said it. An emergent property of a network.
No, sentience is the ability to feel. It's the ability to have a subjective experience.
Then plants have that.
No.
I've linked in. I've sent. There. I have a bibliography that I've sent to James.
Okay, so wait.
There are several links that you can check out.
Is the internet itself sentient?
Eventually, it will be for sure.
Okay, look, from what we understand of sentience, you have to have some sort of.
We don't understand sentience.
No, you have. Okay, from what we understand of sentience right now, you have to have some sort of central area that processes information that gives you the ability to actually have a subjective experience. Where is the evidence that plants have that ability to have a subjective experience? Just because information,
links, you will see.
Just because you have,
they can count, they can feel, they cry, they literally cry.
Okay, so my computer just gave me a virus alert. Is my computer crying?
No.
Okay, why?
Because your computer is just one node. It's like a neuron crying. No, a neuron can't cry, but a neuron is part of a brain.
Okay, wait, how are you drawing this? Okay, for one thing, I don't understand how you're comparing a computer to a neuron, but somehow
it's one node of the network.
Okay, so if one computer communicated to another computer that there's a virus on this other computer, is that the computer crying?
That is the network signaling negative feedback.
Okay, and
the analogy is breaking down, but sure, to a certain degree.
Okay, but how does this translate to your idea that just because there's information being transferred, that means sentience?
I'm not prepared to quote the papers and the scientists
Okay,
themselves.
why don't you show us the papers where it suggests that plants are sentient?
I'm
Link
telling
it.
you that there is clear evidence that plants have a
Okay,
subjective
show me
experience.
one single
Okay,
paper that actually makes the statement that this is evidence that plants have sentience.
All right, we'll table that for the next time, where I'll send it to you or something like that. I would like to see the paper. I don't even remember anymore. It's okay. Let's go on.
Okay. Let's just try to finish this disutility idea. If you can agree that it is horrible to kill an animal in any way.
No, I don't agree to that.
You don't.
There are some ways to kill an animal. I don't agree that it's horrible to kill a person.
Okay, wait, you don't agree that it's horrible to kill a person in certain ways?
No, we do have to kill people sometimes. It happens.
Sure. Okay, I'm assuming you're talking about things like mercy killing.
Well, there's physician-assisted suicide.
Yeah, mercy
there's
killing.
War and all these other
killing.
things.
Okay, mercy killing, self-defense. We're talking about you wanting to eat a burger.
Survival situations.
That's not a survival situation.
Sure, it's not.
Okay, so then why would you bring that up?
I'm saying that in certain contexts, it is okay to kill and eat
let's put this into context. Let's put this into context. You are looking for dinner. You're going to the grocery store. You're choosing a bunch of products that you want to have for dinner. You could either choose a pack of meat burgers, or you could choose a pack of Beyond Burgers. So what makes it morally acceptable to choose to buy the pack of meat burgers where you're supporting an animal, you're supporting a business that kills animals for no reason, since you already have this plant-based option? And let's just assume
that animals are going to be killed for even worse reasons if you don't.
What do you mean for even worse reasons if you don't?
There's the unnecessary suffering of the wild. There is the inability of these animals to survive without husbandry.
Okay, cool. So let's say we had a crystal ball, and I could show you that in 2 years you're gonna die a horrible, horrible death in a fire, and you're gonna suffer for, I don't know, an hour where you get horribly burned, and somebody's gonna try to save you, but eventually you lost so much skin you just die slowly. Would it be okay for me to murder you if you don't want to be murdered? Yeah.
No.
Okay, so how is it ethical for you to murder the cow just because it could theoretically die a horrible, worse death in the future?
That's the deal that we've made. We're guaranteeing it a lifestyle. Now, if you tell me that you're going to kill me a year from now, halfway through, and between now and then, you're going to pay for everything that I need and take care of all my debt and take care of my family when I die, then I might definitely take that.
Okay, so is slavery acceptable too? That's what slave owners promised their slaves.
I have to think about that for a second.
Okay, you realize.
So hold on, let me think about what you're saying. Let me think about what you're saying. I don't want to lie, and I don't want to give a dishonest answer.
Okay, well, let me just talk while you're thinking. I can just talk.
Well, let me recite it out loud first. So you're saying that this is analogous to a slave situation because the animal doesn't want to be husbandized or whatever.
Okay, so the argument you're making is that you're doing it a favor because you're taking care of all of its basic needs, perhaps giving it a better life than it otherwise would have, and preventing it from dying a worse death than it otherwise would, like in the wild, let's say. So that would justify slavery. During the slave trade, the British first initiated the slave trade. What they argued was these people from Africa, they are constantly, very frequently engaged in things like tribal warfare. The technology that they had available to them was pretty low. They were basically living a very tribal lifestyle. And they struggled to get things like food, resources, water, things like that. So capturing them, enslaving them, giving them the benefits of modern technology, food, shelter, water, all of their basic needs, and getting them away from things like tribal warfare, they were doing them a favor. So are you saying in that sort of situation it's okay for humans to enslave other human beings because of this principle that, oh, I'm doing it a favor because I'm improving some aspects of their lifestyle?
No, the human beings being a member of our own species require a different consideration. They require that we consider that their benefits are our own. We have to treat them as
Why is
ourselves
that?
because they have the same makeup, the same template. Whatever applies to them can apply to us and give us a leg up.
Okay, well, why is that?
Why is it
You need
beneficial to
like,
help your
yeah,
fellow man?
yeah. If you're talking about some people who live in a separate country in Africa, like, what do you mean?
When you benefit your fellow man, it benefits you
Well,
ultimately
it's not
in
like
every
it's not a
sense.
fellow man. What do you mean? How does that
Just because you
benefit
don't
me?
recognize it to be a fellow man does not mean
Okay,
it is.
well, look, I'm a rich British dude, and there's these people in Africa that are like 100 miles away,
Yeah,
more than
they
that.
mistook these people as animals. They were wrong.
Okay, well, wait, how does me benefiting how does benefiting black people benefit me if I'm some rich British dude? You know
Look
how
at
many
the
people
world.
look how many people got rich
If
off of
if
slavery.
Can you imagine how much better this world would be right now if those rich British dudes had thought, damn, if we had helped these black people instead of enslaved them, our children might be able to live without being called cracker and whatnot.
That is a really fucking bizarre example. Look, there are plenty of people who benefited off of slavery. Like, what the hell are you talking about?
They benefit in the short term. Sure, they may gain a lot of money. They may make themselves a great fortune, but they still have children that have to go forward through time and then have to live in the world that they were created by their parents. And that is how you've hurt yourself. Your goal is
Okay,
to
so
make
you're
a
saying
better world for
social
your children.
consequence. Okay, so you're saying social consequence is what makes it morally wrong to commit slavery.
Yes, ultimate
Okay, well,
social
that's only if there ever
evolutionary
happens to be.
consequence.
Okay, well, no, that's only if there ever happens to be a social consequence. So let's just
Sure.
say there would be no social consequence. That would be okay to commit slavery.
You're saying if we lived in a universe where nobody ever thinks that slavery is wrong in all of human history, is slavery okay?
There was over a 300-year period where, for the most part, majority of people thought slavery was okay. So for those people, slavery was okay because vast majority of people didn't have any issue with it and had no social consequence.
For those 300 years, everybody alive thought it was okay, except for the abolitionists.
So then it was okay, right?
But because people did think it was not okay. It was told
Very
to them.
few people.
Enough.
And there was
if
no
even
social
one,
consequence.
if there's one person saying,
okay, so then it's wrong for you to eat
it's
meat
known.
because then it's wrong for you to eat meat because I disagree with you. What are you talking about?
I'm gonna back myself into a corner here. Well,
yeah, so like
I'll think about that, man. I mean, like I said, I applaud veganism for a lot of things, and I'll think about that, and maybe I'll have a backup, another answer for you.
Okay,
because
sure.
honestly, you do have a great system, and I can't. It's very. Let me just tell everybody, like, it was very difficult to even put together this this diatribe I have, because veganism, it addresses a lot of issues with our society. I do think, though, that it is a little bit myopic. I think that you're not really taking a good look at the fourth dimensional context of where these animals really stand. And I think that you're kind of digging your heels in because you're on that side, you're on a team now, and you're not allowing yourself to really entertain the possibility that maybe there's an aspect of this that also needs to be addressed.
Okay, well,
and that aspect, I think, is their ultimate survival. If there's any chance that these animals go extinct because we stop eating them, then that is wrong.
Okay, so let's say there was an alien species that was farming human beings, and we were being treated the exact same way as these animals. We were being forcibly bred. Name all the abuses that go on in the animal agriculture industry. Then when we're killed, we're either electrocuted until we're made unconscious. There's like a bolt gun shot into our head, or we're suffocated to death, and then our throats are slit open. And this process goes on indefinitely. Would you want the human race to live that sort of life?
No, definitely not.
Okay, cool. So who the hell cares?
Let me tell you what I think. When one member of any species is able to petition for rights, then that automatically should be bestowed upon all members of that species.
Petition for rights.
Yes, if a cat can walk up to you and say, I don't want to be treated like a pet, then you immediately should release all cats from bondage,
Okay,
pethood, whatever.
what do you mean by that? What would a creature have to do to petition not to be treated in a particular way?
Say the words,
Say
write the
the
words,
words. Okay, so language is
communicate it.
required.
Yes.
So like actual language? Okay, so somebody who's mentally disabled or there are actually feral children who are unable to speak and can never speak because they're never spoken to as children. Is it okay to enslave them because they can't say, I don't want to be enslaved?
It would be, except for the fact that your duty is to maximize the utility of our species. And that requires you learning what happened to these children and trying to make them better so that you know how to do it the next time.
Okay, well they can't protest, they can't speak.
It doesn't matter. They are still members of our community automatically
Why are they automatically members of our community?
because they came from human beings, our lineage, our joined lineage.
Okay, so let's just say hypothetically you found a feral child who couldn't speak, and you were trying to raise it, trying to better it, and studying it, and then it had some sort of health problem. You ran a bunch of health tests. Turns out it's not actually a human being. It has some sort of weird chromosome that's alien. Would it be okay to enslave it then?
Well, I think you already have, but no.
Okay, well
And
then
again,
what do you mean?
it's because of the possible utility. This is a unique, one-of-a-kind creature, and you want to turn it into a slave or a food. That's just, imagine if you found an alien that was a plant, right? An alien plant. Would you make a tofu burger out of it?
I don't see how that's a moral issue.
If a meteorite falls in your front yard tomorrow and there's a plant growing on it, are you going to eat it?
No, just because I have a fascination with studying it, but I don't see how that's a moral issue.
You don't think that it would be immoral for you to rob the rest of us of the information in that plant's DNA?
No.
Well, I disagree.
Why is that even a moral issue? Like, there's positive utility that could be gotten from studying the plant, but that doesn't make it immoral to just eat the plant.
Okay, let me ask you this. If you cured all cancers in your basement tonight, would it be immoral for you to never tell anybody about it?
No, I don't. I wouldn't say that's immoral. I would just say that it doesn't generate positive utility. It's neutral.
So your theory of morality doesn't require proactive action.
Okay, so should you be forced to study cancer because there's some sort of positive utility that could be brought from you finding a cure for cancer? I mean, hypothetically, maybe if you studied cancer, you'd find a cure. Should you be morally responsible for killing, like, I don't know how many millions or billions of people because you didn't bother looking for a cure for cancer?
I think that it is part of the disutility idea of having the liberty to choose what you want to do. But I do think that encouraging people in mass to become scientifically minded to study diseases and whatnot, that would be beneficial to all of us.
Okay, well, this is a totally different concept. Like, on one hand, you're arguing that you should be compelled to do something good, and you're saying by not doing so, you're doing something bad. Whereas I'm arguing it's neutral.
Not compelled. You're compelled by your own moral framework. Whatever you believe is good and bad, that's what compels you. If I tell you what I think is good for you to do, that doesn't compel you to do anything, right? You're not going to care what I say unless I say something that's going to strike a nerve to you, right?
I can't even. We trailed off a little bit. Where were we? What were we talking about again? It was
James, help us out.
No, it was species extinction. That was something we were talking about. Was that the argument you were making, like at the beginning, that we have to?
My argument is that if there's a chance that these animals go extinct because we're not eating them, then it's immoral not to eat them.
So it's a moral good to murder things just so that the species can continue existing.
If the only other option is extinction, yes.
Okay, and you'd be against aliens just doing the same sort of system to human beings. You'd prefer extinction over that.
It's obvious that wouldn't be the only option for us.
Okay, well, no. Let's say in a hypothetical, you can either choose to have the human race be extincted. Uh, I don't know if that's a word, or you could have the aliens just perpetually murdering us in a never-ending holocaust. Which would you prefer?
Okay, if let's say that I have a crystal ball that tells me in 5 years, 100% sure humanity is going extinct completely, but we can take slavery from these aliens. I'm going to take the slavery.
Okay, no,
Answer.
you're changing the hypothetical. So I'm asking you if we were in a similar situation as these animals, and we were under the system of a perpetual, never-ending holocaust, like these animals are, would you take that over extinction?
Yes.
Okay, I think that's a little insane. Why would you even bother? Like, what is the
Because
benefit
the,
of
the
keeping these?
potential of us to still go on and one day overcome that situation is
Okay, well,
still
suppose you
there.
never. Well, let's say you never would, especially in the case of these animals. Apparently, the only way that they could ever break out of the bonds of like slavery is to learn language, which obviously isn't going to friggin' happen.
Why not?
Because we are selectively breeding these animals. How the hell would they ever learn language?
Parrots can speak.
Okay, no, they don't. They can't learn language. Language is a specific thing. They can
And
learn words, but
so
they
so when
can't learn
gorillas sign
language.
language, that's not language.
That's not language. They can learn words. They can't speak sentences. They can
Are you
understand what
sure
certain
about that?
things are. They can apply words. Yep, and this has been extensively studied in feral children who have not learned language. They can understand words. I can't remember the girl, but she was discovered on like in some shitty house. I think she was like 13 or something when they found her. Her parents like so badly abused her that they never spoke to her. She never learned how to speak. They could never teach her language. What they could do is teach her words, and she could make word associations. Like she could know what water is, she can understand what food is, and if she was hungry, she could say food or burger or something like that. But
So
language is something else.
what
It's
is it
not
then?
just
Because I'm very
words.
confused. Then what are we calling language? What is your definition?
Um, Let me actually look up a concise definition of language
I feel
because
like the ability to communicate
method of
information is
so
language.
method of human communication, either spoken or written, consisting of the use of words in a structured and conventional way. That's the difference. It has a structure to it. You're able to communicate across ideas, concepts that aren't just single words. All animals have an ability to communicate, like dogs bark. You wouldn't consider that a language. So language is a very specific thing where there's a structure to what you're saying.
Well, I think if we use that definition, then well, so let's say that I grant you that. Where are we then? Like, I'm granting you that animals don't have a language. What are we saying here?
I'm saying animals, at least most animals that we know of, don't have language. I think it's being debated right now whether or not certain whales and I think squid might actually have a very primitive language, but most animals like chickens, cows, pigs, they don't have language. They can make word associations, like you can train a pig to know what come or stay or sit is.
Is
I
there any
think
population of humans that never? I mean, we're talking about
is
one
there a
specific human
population of
being, right?
human? Is there a population of humans that don't have language?
Yeah,
Um,
of any kind.
I don't know about a population, but there are single people who have never been taught language as children. Again, they can make word associations, they can understand what words are, but they can't actually speak like a language. They can't. They don't have these communication skills where words are aligned in a functional way.
Well, they still have a similar set of chromosomes to us, and that gives them this place of human, which means they have a utility of showing us a human experience as an example. And human experience examples are beneficial to us no matter what. So we cannot allow. I don't agree
Okay.
that killing any human is moral.
Okay, so you're saying so now it's not language that makes it an issue, it's chromosomes.
No, for the animals, it's language. For humans, it's not the chromosomes, just the fact that they're similar enough to us that their experience can translate to us. When an animal crosses that threshold, when their experience can be of benefit to us in the long term, then they are no longer just animals. They are people.
Okay, do you think if you were to skin a dog alive and skin a human alive, that their experiences would be all that different?
No.
Okay, what about if you were to
But
slit a
who
dog's
skins any
throat?
animals alive?
Plenty of people. It happens all the fucking time. Like fur
That's
industry.
just sick.
I've actually seen some animals get skinned alive. There was Riding Regency Meat Packers. It's a slaughterhouse in Toronto. They were recently shut down for health violations, and
Good.
some of the cows that they killed, they would actually slice their throats open, but they would still be conscious, and they'd start cutting their skin off while they're still
Well, I want
screaming.
nothing to do with defending that
Okay, cool.
whatsoever.
Okay, so I'm still having an issue with this idea that we should prevent animals from going extinct because it's better to perpetually murder them in a never-ending holocaust.
Yes.
Okay, and you would be in favor of doing that for human beings too.
I would be in favor of doing that for human beings, given the situation in which extinction is guaranteed.
Okay. You know what? If you're willing to bite the bullet on that, like, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. So you're basically saying that as long as Hitler were committing a humane Holocaust where the Jews would feel absolutely no pain, and that would be the only way to keep the Jewish race alive, only we're applying this to human beings, you'd be in favor of that? It's literally a Holocaust. It just never ends.
Yeah, I get it.
So you'd be in
I'm
favor
standing
of
there,
a
yeah.
never-ending Holocaust for human beings if it meant they would never go extinct?
Well, not only if it meant it, but also if it was guaranteed the other way. I mean, there's a little nuance there, but
What do
yes.
you mean guaranteed the other way?
I mean, animals that have a chance to make their own way, to find perpetual survival of their own, once they have that potential, they're no longer animals, they're people.
You're saying wild animals are people?
No, I'm saying if a sentient of our sentience, right? A level of our sentience, our intelligence, if that kind of creature arises in the wild or in the domesticated area, then those animals cannot be treated as animals anymore. They have to be treated like people.
Okay, I think this is a good segue into another name the trait discussion. What about human beings who are mentally disabled and have the same intellectual capacity of a cow or a chicken or a pig?
Their experience and the improvement of their experience improves the experience of the rest of us.
How is that so?
If it's like the rising tide, the tide raises all boats. You've heard that before?
No.
No. Whatever is good, whatever improves the experience of any human being can be applied to other human beings, whether now or in the future. If you slaughter these people because they have a disability now, then you're cutting off your chance to learn how to prevent disability or how to make disability better for the people who don't want their better. I'm sorry,
That's
what?
not true at all. In fact, slaughtering these people and using them for medical research could actually make it so you can find a cure easier.
Easier, but then at what cost? You've now created a social situation that causes unrest.
Okay, well now you're using a social situation. Okay, well let's assume that there was no social issue and we're living in Nazi Germany where it was.
But that's the point. You can't just assume that.
Well, no, I'm not assuming that. I'm giving you a hypothetical, and we're testing these moral ideas you have. So let's say we're.
But this happened in real life, and we can look at the real result of it.
Let's say we're living in Nazi Germany, and nobody had any issue with using some sort of mentally disabled person for medical research and killing them. Would that make it okay to kill a mentally disabled person for medical research?
If we lived in a universe where nobody is ever going to have a problem with it, then fine. Okay.
Oh, okay. Well, wait. Now, okay, so now you're saying if even one person protests, it's wrong?
No, I am saying that now, in this time, we now recognize how dangerous that has been, how devastating that was to our course. And now we still have to pay the price for it.
Pay what price?
The disunity,
What do you mean disunity?
the fact that human beings are incapable of coming together and finding real solutions because of all the animosity for the past.
I don't understand how murdering somebody who has Down syndrome and conducting some sort of medical experiment on them to figure out a way to prevent that disease would somehow cause like some sort of social issue or disunity in the future.
In the same way that the United States government and its conducting of human experiments on soldiers, on the Tuskegee Airmen, for example, all those things cause disunity now. Now we can't trust our government, and now you have people who absolutely hate the government. We have a civil war brewing because of all these old sins.
Okay, you're using a different sort of example. How would murdering a mentally disabled person cause some sort of disunity in the future?
When you murder any kind of human being, you are creating a situation in which other human beings feel threatened.
Okay, and let's assume we
When
were
the-
living in a society where that wasn't the case.
Why
That would
would we
make it
assume
okay.
that?
Okay,
Why-
well,
why-
as the
why? I mean-
hypothetical, I'm trying to discover your moral principles. So let's say a
I'm giving it to
hypothetical.
you.
Let's say there's a hypothetical where we were considering murdering a mentally disabled person, either because we wanted to eat them, or for medical research, or for whatever purpose. We can apply whatever positive utility to murdering a mentally disabled person. And let's say no one had a problem with it. Would it be okay?
Yeah.
It would be.
Yeah.
Okay. How many people would have to disagree with it for it to be a problem?
I don't know.
Okay, this is a little strange. So
I mean, we're talking about a hypothetical universe that could never exist. I don't know how to be in
it
it.
absolutely
I don't know how
could
to.
exist.
I don't know how to dive into this universe.
It
The
absolutely
people,
could exist. Have you ever heard
the
of
people that really exist in real world are not going to stand for that. Nobody's
ever
going to
heard
be
of
okay with you
Spartans?
murdering people with mental disabilities.
Have you ever heard of Spartans?
Yeah.
Yeah, they would murder children who were weak, sickly, slow, and they'd literally just throw them down a pit.
And now we regard them as savages.
No, not really. I think most people actually, if you ask them,
Do you
they
think that
kind of highly...
plants? Do you think that one day it's possible for plants to be proven sentient in any possible future?
Wait a second. Let's retrace. I don't understand how that matters whether or not we consider them savages today. The issue is that you believe...
That's the whole point, man. That's my moral. That's the whole point of the thing. It's causing the eventuality of our species to be in a negative light. It's creating a situation in which we may go extinct in the future. That's why it's bad.
How could we possibly go extinct in the future if we murder members of our species who can't even breed?
I'm sorry, what was that?
How could we possibly go extinct in the future if we murder members of our own species who can't even breed? They're unviable. Like these mentally disabled people, they'll
Like
never
I
have
said,
offspring.
we are creating a situation where humans cannot trust humans.
Okay,
We're destroying the
not
community.
necessarily.
You have, if any action that destroys the community of humanity will put us on the path to extinction.
Okay, anything
Not
that
necessarily doesn't matter, man.
Anything that destroys a community will put us on the path to extinction. So if somebody were to have a gay relationship in Saudi Arabia and that creates distrust in the community there, that makes
That's not the community of all
homosexuality
humans.
immoral?
No, that's not the community of humans.
What did you want to say?
Oh, I was just being sure that we could hear the rest of what you were saying, VeganGains, but we can. It sounds like you were done, so go ahead. Sorry, Cass.
Okay, well, let's say all humans, I'm sure at one point, a vast majority of human society thought homosexuality was bad. Okay, so
And they were
homosexuality, how are they wrong? It created issues within their community.
there are plenty of epigenetic theories for why homosexuality improves our situation and helps us genetically to survive.
That doesn't matter. You mentioned
I'm not going to quote
that
them. But
you mentioned distrust within the community is a problem. So if something creates distrust
in a fourth dimensional context.
In a fourth dimensional context.
Yes, you're thinking so narrowly, man.
Okay, well, so wait, why? Okay, so let's go through this hypothetical. You're saying they were wrong because there's some sort of genetic reason why homosexuality is a good thing.
Yes, and the fact that now we realize that homosexuality does not hurt us in any kind of way, and that helps us as a people to come together.
How does homosexuality help people come together?
I'm not speaking it correctly. It's not that homosexuality helps people come together. It's the fact that now that we recognize that we cannot discriminate against each other for these superficial aspects of our personality, that brings us together. That allows us to embrace all of each other. Blah, blah, blah. That helps us to embrace each other equally. When we embrace each other, when we help each other and cooperate, that is superior to competition.
Not necessarily.
Creating discrimination causes enemies.
Well, there's a reason we discriminate. There's a very practical, evolutionary reason why we discriminate.
Yeah, and they're valid in the situations in which they first arose, but now we have evolved past that.
No, not really. Look, there are totally valid reasons and useful reasons to discriminate. You see this sort of discriminatory behavior when we see pandemic diseases. You might be able to call some people xenophobic when they don't want to allow immigration during a pandemic disease. But
that's a good example.
That sort of discrimination is helpful. So, and look, I'm sure a lot of people can recognize certain people who come from certain places are far more likely to have a set of behaviors and beliefs that are not congruent with your own or are even generally harmful. So, no,
You've heard
discrimination is a totally useful thing.
Yes, totally. But now that we have the cognitive ability to actually dissect those discriminatory practices, we can see the parts of it that are actually useful. It is not helpful to discriminate against people because they're from China, but it is perfectly understandable why you'd want to discriminate against a wet market, right?
Okay.
And if that is very prevalent in a certain area, you might say a country that has wet markets we don't want to have trade with in international travel. That's not racist. That's not nationalist even. That's just protection. That's just reasonable.
Okay, and what is the practical use of discriminating against animals in this sort of way, where you should be able to murder a cow for a burger?
The practical use of murdering a cow for...
You're saying, okay, so you're saying discrimination is useful in certain circumstances. What's the use of discriminating against animals in this sort of way?
The use of discriminating against animals in this sort of way is that we have guaranteed them a ticket to the future.
That's not beneficial for us.
Yes, it is, because, okay, so this is where you have to get even more deep into it. The fact is, every single species on this planet makes unique proteins, and all of them could have potential uses. We don't know what lineages.
What proteins?
No, not all of them do. Not all of them do. No, of course. But you don't know what uses any specific species could have in the future to you. So it is unwise to allow any of them to go extinct if you can help it.
Okay, this is probably the most ridiculous argument you've made yet. So you're saying
what argument am I making?
Well, wait, you're saying there's a practical utility to ensuring that these animals don't go extinct because they make unique proteins that we could use in the future. What proteins?
What do you mean? You don't know about finding cures for different diseases in different plants and animals?
What do you mean? Most of our diseases come from animals in the first place.
Okay, but that doesn't mean that we don't ever find any kind of useful information in them. I'm not gonna. I don't have any specific examples of that. I will find some for you. I will find some.
Okay, well, give me an example.
Okay,
why
for
we
instance,
have to keep
like the
growing
venom
chickens.
of a spider being used as a cure for, I don't know, fucking
Okay, well, spiders
heart
aren't
disease or some
domesticated
shit.
animals.
Sure, but they're animals.
They're not domesticated.
So wait a minute. So now we have a line between domesticated and undomesticated animals?
You're saying that we have to keep farming animals to prevent them from going extinct. That was your
We
argument.
don't know
So you're
what
changing the topic.
benefit. We don't know what benefits cows may pose for us in the future.
So we should keep infinitely holocausting them?
We should keep them alive.
Yeah, infinitely holocausting them, infinitely murdering them. Because you think eventually they'll have some sort of unique property, possibly in the future, that will allow some sort of medical breakthrough. You're telling me cows are the solution to some sort of amazing medical breakthrough that might be useful to us?
Are you telling me that that's impossible?
Yes. That is ridiculous.
That's
What
just
the
an
hell
opinion.
could cows do?
And I guess mine is an opinion too. I don't know. Maybe one day the first cow that becomes sentient cures all the other diseases. Who knows?
Okay, well, let's say we should get rid of human rights and allow for us to murder any humans we want and vivisect them, because that might someday allow us to come up with some sort of amazing medical breakthrough. So should we get rid of human?
I mean,
okay, what do you mean you don't see how? So now you're using a double standard?
I don't know what you're saying here. Like, you're saying that killing people can be beneficial?
Yeah, absolutely.
No, I mean,
it absolutely could for medical research. It absolutely could for medical research. Look, there are things that
but then once you've killed the subject, you can't do anything else with them.
Well, guess what? There's more people. There's always more people. We keep breeding. So what do you mean?
People will die anyways. You can use dead bodies. You don't have to kill them to get them dead.
No, you need to
once you kill them
on live human beings. If you're going to do things like studies on the brain or studies on cancer,
or
studies on some
you need
sort of
living
therapy, you
subjects.
need living subjects. Yes, and it's a massive benefit to medical research to be able to experiment on human subjects. So I could argue that we should allow like inhumane experimentation on human subjects, because eventually it could potentially lead to a medical breakthrough that we wouldn't have otherwise discovered, and the amount of positive utility that generates would be greater than the amount of negative utility to come to that sort of discovery. So is that out of the realms of possibility? Should we do it just because it could potentially happen in the future?
No, you've totally disregarded the principle of liberty.
Okay, why? Okay, so can you name the trait why humans deserve liberty and animals don't?
Because they can ask for it.
Because they can ask for it. Okay, mentally disabled people can't ask for it.
But people can ask for it on the behalf of them.
Okay, I can ask for it on the behalf of animals, so...
Well, you have a right to ask for it. And we maybe should grant a lot of it.
You just contradicted yourself.
Maybe we should grant a lot of those rights, but...
They
have other utilities and other.
Do you not
because
see
you're
that
not.
You just contradicted yourself.
I see that you keep trying to separate the principles and try to take them in a vacuum. No principle exists in a vacuum.
You just said that if someone can speak on the behalf of someone else for their liberty, that means they should be granted liberty. So I speak
I think
for
that
liberty
we covered
for
this earlier. That when.
Just want to be sure that we heard the rest from Richard, and then I promise we'll come right back to you, Cass.
Okay.
In case if you were still going, Richard.
Yeah, sure. So you claimed that if the person or subject cannot speak for its own liberty, if someone else can speak for its liberty, therefore it deserves liberty. Well, okay.
A member of its species.
Why does it have to be a member of its species?
We covered that earlier.
No, we didn't. Okay, explain why it has to be a member of its species. Why are you even separating things at species? Like, I could say it has to be a member of its own race, or it has to be a member of its own gender. Why are you separating things
at genus?
I didn't.
Yeah, you're saying that it's okay to murder and make plants suffer, but it's not okay to do it to animals. Why is that line?
Do you know what a genus is? You realize that we have a different
maybe
genus
I meant
than
phylum.
other animals?
Maybe I meant phylum, or maybe I meant kingdom. I'm not sure. Go ahead.
Well, because plants aren't sentient, you haven't provided any evidence that plants are sentient.
I have the link in the description. You can look at it.
Okay, in the description of this stream?
Yeah.
I had not updated it yet, so sorry about that. I do have your personal links, but let me put your
it's a bibliography. You can scroll down. There are these presentations from all these scientists showing all of these different sentient animals.
Wait. Is the conclusion of any of this research, do any of the authors state this is evidence of sentience in plants?
These are presentations. These are demonstrations.
Okay, so no. Look, dude, Just because plants can communicate, just because they send off pheromones or they can transfer information, that's not evidence of sentience. Sentience
In your
is something
opinion,
that's
but you are
very
drawing
specific. Sentience is something that's very specific. I don't care if you say, oh, it's in your opinion. No, if there's no evidence in support of something, you can't just say that's in your opinion. You don't have any evidence for your claims. Where's the evidence that plants are sentient?
Just look at the
Show me
videos.
a paper. Show me one
The papers
paper.
are in the description of all those videos.
Okay, no, just link it. Can you link like text in this type of program?
No, we do not link things in live freaking debates, man. Nobody does that.
Yeah, I do. What do you mean? I have
on your
debates
channel,
on
and
research.
you have control.
I have debates where I share research all the time.
Let's try this.
Dude, just show me one single paper where the authors concluded this is evidence of sentience in plants.
Give me a second. I will try. Well, I'm not going to, no.
Give me the name of one.
The paper. I will find you a paper, and that's all I'm going to do.
Okay, just give me the name of one.
Where's my bibliography?
Let's see. I'm going to put that bibliography in the chat, and then I'm on a different laptop. So what I can do, though, I can send it to Richard on Twitter.
Sure, do that.
Want to remind you folks, we are very excited. I forgot to mention this at the start of the stream. We are on podcasts now. We are making the move. So this will be in addition to YouTube. This debate itself will also be a podcast that you can listen to, and it will be a really fun one to listen to. We've got a lot of positive feedback. The chat's been enjoying this, you guys, and we got a lot of great questions. So, yes.
Okay, so here's a paper. Ecologist Suzanne Sinard.
Just name the paper.
Exploring how and why trees talk to each other.
What journal was that published in?
Yale Environment 360. Yale School of Environment.
Okay, for one thing, this isn't a...
Okay, sure.
Okay, do you understand what, like, a peer-reviewed journal is? This is a blog.
Okay, do you want me to do research and find out? I can write a paper for this if you want.
This woman is speaking in a blog, and talking to each other is different than sentience. Computers talk to each other.
My God.
Do you understand that communication doesn't imply sentience?
So what does?
Well, being able to feel. It's not.
How do you know something can feel if it doesn't communicate?
Look, it's not something that can be deductively proven, but you can make certain inferences. So if it's not something that can be deductively proven, again, sentience is the ability to feel. It's very.
So what are we
difficult.
talking about then?
Okay, look. Sentience is the ability to feel if you don't have any evidence that plants feel. If you only have evidence that plants communicate, then you don't have evidence that plants
hold on. Give me a second.
feel.
Let me find the paper about them crying. Hold on. Fuck, I will find it.
This is okay. I'm guessing this is
you're
just
right
a
to ask for it, and
clickbait
I am the right.
article.
I need to find it. I need to find that for you.
I'm guessing this is just a clickbait article and not a peer-reviewed medical journal, and they use those words. Plants can cry.
I watched these
it's an
scientists
attractive
talk.
Title.
That's all I did.
It's an attractive title. There's no evidence that plants have sentience. Sentience is a very specific thing. It has nothing to do with communication.
It is entirely possible that you may be correct. I listened to these scientists talk, and that is the conclusion that I drew from that. That's all I can say.
This might be a decent time to go into the Q&A. If you guys have last thoughts, we can definitely have time for those. Otherwise, we can transition in pretty quick for that question and answer session.
No, let's just go ahead and go to Q&A. I'm going to do this. I know. Okay, so wait a minute. Before we go any further, I want to know exactly. You want to see evidence of the plants having a subjective feeling. Is that correct?
Yeah, I want some sort of evidence that they can have a subjective experience.
Okay, and I just want to be super clear because when I find it, I don't want any goalpost moving. Tell me anything else that you need to tell me about that before I go looking. Because I will find it and I will send it to you. I'll send it to you on Twitter.
Okay, well, the easiest evidence that they can have that a being has the ability to have a subjective experience is that they'd tell you. Obviously, most creatures can't communicate on that level, but being able to respond to noxious stimuli being able to
Plants
have
definitely
some
can do that.
sort of
Saw it with my own eyes.
being able to have some sort of problem solving or reasoning ability. That's a very obvious one. And
Being able
having
to
some
tell
sort
how many
of,
times a bug lands on you
huh?
before you, like being able to tell if it's a bug that's on in your mouth as opposed to just wind or something.
That's
Like a Venus
evident.
flytrap.
So that is that could possibly be evidence, but again, just because that happens, that doesn't mean that's the case that it's sentient. So I'd say
Okay,
the
so
best evidence of
it-
sentience that you could possibly have is reasoning capability. So being
Okay,
able to do some sort of problem solving.
So when a Venus flytrap needs exactly a certain number of steps taken on its mouth before it will close, we don't count that, or do you think that that's possibly a reasoning type characteristic?
No, because you can actually explain what's going on. I can't remember. I'm not a botanist or whatever, but there's a reason why a Venus flytrap can detect whether or not it's a fly or if it's, I don't know, some piece of debris. It's just because I can't even remember the explanation, but it's not
Well, it's
that it's
because of the steps.
reasoning. It's not that it's reasoning. It's that it has some sort of built-in.
Yeah,
It has some sort of built-in like molecular response. It's not that it reasons, oh, there's a fly there. I can tell that because there's a certain amount of steps or it feels a certain way.
yeah, it needs a certain number of action potentials to be sent down before it actually can close.
Yeah, sort of like how a computer can tell whether or not something's a Bluetooth signal or a Wi-Fi signal, something like that. Just because it can detect a certain device or certain thing, that doesn't mean it's actually feeling and having a conscious experience.
Have you ever tried Googling plants crying?
Yeah, I've actually responded to a few of those sorts of articles on my channel.
And
They're
you just
clickbait
totally don't.
articles. So they're clickbait
What about the
articles. They're
videos?
not published. I don't know about the videos. They're clickbait art. I don't care about videos, dude. I care about actual scientific evidence. So these are all clickbait articles. They're clickbait videos. They're worded in a way that's just attractive and eye-catching. There's nothing that suggests that plants actually have a conscious experience. What they're talking about is plants having some sort of ability to communicate, and that's important for agricultural reasons. We might be able
I don't
to
see how
prevent. We might be able to prevent the spread of certain diseases that could kill crops or something like that. It's not any kind of evidence that these plants are conscious and feel and should deserve any kind of rights.
I just don't see how that you can separate the two so cleanly like that.
Okay, so again, do you think your computer is conscious because it can communicate with other devices or other computers?
I think that computers or any node of sufficient complexity can have consciousness arise.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know that because nobody knows what consciousness is, but that's just my hypothesis.
Okay, just because something's complex, that doesn't mean it can actually feel.
No,
Like
it has to
my
have a network. It has to have a way
Okay,
to
well,
exchange
look.
signals.
Okay, well, my computer's on a network. It's called the internet. It can exchange signals with different computers. Like, what do you mean? Just because I'm downloading a torrent? So because I'm
And you
downloading a
deny
torrent,
that it's possible?
yeah, it's completely impossible for consciousness to arise in that sort of way. Look, again, you're conflating two different things. Communication is different than consciousness. Consciousness is a subjective experience, whereas communication is just sharing information. You don't need to have consciousness to share information.
We're we're near that time. I can give you, since we had Richard start, if you want to have the last word to that, Kaz, we can give you that, as long as it's not like a speech, not like a short speech or anything, but
I just
like
want to
kind of
ask
the
him one
last
more
rebuttal.
question.
Sure.
I just want to ask one more question. Just if because I'm pretty sure that one of these videos is of a plant remembering a noxious stimuli and then altering its behavior in the future. Will that, if I can get you the paper behind that, will you make any concession there?
No, because again, that doesn't just... Okay, so I know there's a few plants that can do that. You're going to have to actually provide evidence of consciousness, not just that it changes its reaction based on something that happened before. That's not really any kind of direct evidence.
I really think that that's just
well,
human bias.
You know what, dude? We can have a debate about this, a really detailed, long debate about this on my channel, and You can bring whatever research you want, and you can message me on Twitter or whatever.
That sounds great, man. And I really appreciate it. And, you know, I totally acknowledge that I could be totally wrong about this because, like I said at the beginning, you guys, you're on your shit when it comes to morals in a way that nobody else really is. So I do applaud you for that.
Okay. Yeah,
Sweet.
Yeah, I would just invite you onto debate, whatever. We can have a detailed discussion on sentience in the plant kingdom, and we can also have a longer debate about ethics as well, if you're interested.
Yeah, I'd really like to talk about the basis of your morality and what all of your principles are, so I can get a comprehensive look at it.
Okay, sure.
Okay.
Sweet. Thanks so much, gentlemen. It's been a true pleasure. Really appreciate it. And also, yes, that would be exciting. We would love to tweet or put the word out if that debate happens. So feel free to let us know, guys. We always try to promote it no matter where the debate happens. So with that, we'll jump into these questions. Thanks for your question first from Steven. Thanks for your super sticker. Are those catching on? Okay. Crafty Keela, thanks for your question. Statement says, veganism doesn't stop cruelty to animals. It helps close small family farms. The only people buying that land are intensive, quote, farms, unquote, which equal more cruelty. So I think this is a challenge to you, Richard. If you want to respond, you of course could.
Yeah, sure. So I understand this argument. This is sort of misinformation that was popularized by an animal scientist, agricultural scientist named Archer Davis. He put out a few really bad papers where he made a bunch of miscalculations, and he calculated that if you raise if you have a farm where cows eat grass, that causes fewer animal deaths than if you were to grow like wheat. Well, he made a bunch of miscalculations, and the biggest miscalculation he made was he didn't factor in land use and productivity of the farm. You can grow far more food on a smaller unit of land if you're using plant agriculture, and that ends up killing fewer animals just because you can feed so much more people on a smaller piece of land. On top of that, he made a bunch of miscalculations on how many animals, like how many small field animals like mice are killed during harvest. So no, that's totally false. Fewer animals are killed and are harmed to grow plants.
Can I ask VeganGains one more question real quick?
Sure.
Short and pithy, just because we have a lot of questions.
VeganGains, do you still support abortion? Are you still pro-life?
Oh yeah, I support abortions.
Are you against egg consumption?
Yeah, and it's not because eggs are unfertilized. It's not for that reason. It's because of exploitation. All of the hens are exploited. So it doesn't have anything to do with you like smushing their eggs. It's because of exploitation.
So if we were to not be exploiting them, if they were like free range, only the excess, blah, 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 you'd be okay with that egg consumption?
You'd have to be talking about a situation where they're wild, we're not breeding them, and you just happen upon some eggs that are unfertilized and loose that aren't being tended to.
Okay, I think that's reasonable enough. Thank you.
Gotcha. And thanks for your super chat from Bartos Diagos. Says Kaz for president. You have a fan out there, Kaz. Very nice. And thanks for your question. This one comes in from T-Yoga, or statement says, plants select for animals eating their fruit, though.
Plants select for animals eating their fruit, though. Yeah, I was... Go ahead.
That's kind of weirdly worded. I think what he's saying is that there's a symbiotic sort of relationship where plants will, like, there's a coevolution going on where plants will create sweeter, more colorful fruits that attract mammals in an attempt to spread more seeds. So it's beneficial for some of these plant-eating animals to have, like, to seek out these plants, and these plants benefit from these animals eating them because they spread their seeds. So I think that's what they're trying to say. I don't know how that relates to the debate, though.
Gotcha. And thanks for your question. This one comes in from Stupid Whore Energy Strikes Again. She says, the question should be, do plants have any capacity to suffer?
I'll leave the next one.
I would say no, since they're not conscious. You need consciousness to be able to suffer.
Well, that's going to be the topic of the next debate.
Yeah.
That's what we need to discuss.
Gotcha. And Ryan Gordon, thanks for your question, said, tell me what untamed animals do for you if not provide food. You'd prefer taking their habitat away and turn it all into cropland?
Okay, so this is a pretty ridiculous idea. I'd recommend that person read the UN's latest climate report. If you turn to Chapter 5, page 76, they outline how switching to a 100% plant-based food system where no animal agriculture is used would actually free up land. So again, I mentioned earlier that if you farm plants, it's much more land efficient. You don't have to use as much land to grow the same amount of food. So if we were to get rid of animal agriculture, we would be able to use much less land for agriculture, which would actually free up a lot of land to use to regrow forests. And they calculate that by 2050, if we switch to a 100% plant-based food system, we could reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 1/3. So I'd recommend you just read the UN's latest climate report.
Gotcha. All right, thanks. And also, thanks so much for your question from Germania says, if Kaz is against animal cruelty, why do you still eat meat from animals that were abused and treated cruelly? Isn't that cognitive dissonance?
It's not cognitive dissonance if I'm not aware of it. If I am aware of it, I'm sorry. I am aware of it. I am cognizant of it, and I am seriously considering it all the time. And I'm weighing the situation in real time. And hopefully I'll come to some kind of conclusion soon. But I just have to be honest and say, like VeganGains was just saying about that UN study. I've looked into that too, and I really can't see any failure in the logic. I hope that maybe somebody else will, but like I said at the beginning of my opening, the efficiency argument is the best one they have, and it's irrefutable as far as I can tell.
Gotcha. And thanks for your question. This one coming in from Sick Vibe 1 says, for Kaz, if aliens couldn't understand our language, would it be moral for them to kill us? We can interpret animal behaviors as them not wanting to die.
If the aliens couldn't understand our language, then they wouldn't be intelligent. And then we would be us eating them.
Gotcha. And Ryan, thanks for your question, said, what if the frogs are turning gay? Nice Alex Jones meme there. Raven Zero, thanks for your question, says, wow, I can see why they call him the psycho vegan. Richard, oh, listen, I was just talking to somebody the other day, Richard, a huge fan of yours, and no joke, I'm dead serious. He's I go to the plasma center here, and he works there, and we were just talking about you have just the right personality for YouTube, because it's but yeah. So next, thanks for your question. Lori Nicola they said, I'd be super into VeganGains' cause if he wasn't so insane about it. I'm intrigued. You have a critic out there, VeganGains. Do you have if you want you respond, otherwise
yeah, I mean, I could be the worst person on earth, and I don't even try to act like, I don't try to pretend as if I'm a good person. I don't consider myself a good person. I think I'm just doing at least the minimum amount that I think should be required of me, which is, going vegan, not killing and eating animals. But yeah, regardless of my character, I mean, you should just listen to my arguments. You can block out all my personality issues and just listen to my arguments, and I think my arguments are pretty sound.
Gotcha. Thanks for being a good sport, Richard. I'm taking these. Ryan, thanks for your question statement. Said, Adolf was a vegetarian. Oh, I feel like I shouldn't have said that word. Was a vegetarian and animal rights activist. He ate eggs to get protein, but hated doing it.
That's actually not true. One of the people who made his food, like chefs or food preparers and food tasters, he ate meat regularly. The whole him being vegetarian, it was part of his political campaign. Gandhi was a popular political figure at the time, and he used that sort of popularity that Gandhi had, where Gandhi would abstain from sex, he was vegetarian. He tried to follow that idea, and he claimed he was a vegetarian. All he really did was reduce his meat consumption because apparently it gave him really bad gas. And he also claimed that he abstained from sex, and this was just to promote this idea that he's a really good, serious, reliable sort of person, and he tried to compare himself to Gandhi.
That is super interesting. I did not know that. Okay, thanks for your question. This one comes in from Lori McCole. Oh, we got that one. Taliesin Oberlander says VeganGains is misrepresenting the Holocaust for his argument. The Holocaust goal was extermination. Co-modification is completely different.
Okay, I don't think that's a misrepresentation. Just because the Nazis wanted to cause extinction, I don't think it's wrong to make a comparison between the animal agriculture industry and the Holocaust when essentially the same moral wrongs are being committed. And there are actually some Jewish Holocaust survivors who became animal activists, and they compare the Holocaust to animal agriculture. And I know quite a few Jewish animal rights activists whose friends and family were actually in the Holocaust, and they make the same comparisons. So I think the meaningful comparison is that these animals are being mistreated. They're being forced into these enclosed spaces. They're being abused, and they're being murdered. The extermination aspect of it isn't important. Gotcha. And I think you could argue it's worse because it's ongoing. It will never end unless we do something about it.
I definitely would agree that the situation that we put these animals in is very reminiscent, and the suffering that we are creating by our practices is on par.
Gotcha. And thanks for your question. Frustrated Atheist says, just want to know if I can still eat baby sandwiches. Thanks for that. Might use this as an opportunity for a serious question, because we asked the vegan, their YouTube channel called Those Annoying Vegans. They're self-titled, really charming couple. And I'm curious, VeganGains, because we asked them the same question. Do you have any favorite recipes for those of us who are kind of moving into the vegan lifestyle or diet? Do you have any recipes that you'd recommend, like a sandwich, alternatives, or anything like that?
I'm not a cook. I'm not great at recipes. I could just recommend a few cookbooks. I think Thug Kitchen cookbook is a really good one. Avant-Garde Vegan has a really good cookbook. I think those are some really good cookbooks for good recipes to follow. Just that are more for taste, not necessarily for health. But yeah, I'd recommend those. I'd check out Avant-Garde Vegan and Thug Kitchen. They have a few cookbooks.
Thanks so much. And Stupid Whore Energy strikes again. She says, what about all the loss of biodiversity exterminated when making land available to ruminants for meat production?
Did you want to take that one, or I'll take it? So yeah, a lot of people don't consider this. Like, again, Archer Davis has created a lot of these like bad ideas where people think that, oh, if the cow is just eating grass, it's good for the environment, it's natural, but it actually significantly impacts biodiversity. For one thing, you have to clear out a lot of land to make room for grazing cattle. Cattle also prefer to eat particular types of grass, and that actually affects biodiversity just because of the type of grass that they're eating. So that actually gets rid of a lot of different smaller animals, a lot of different insects, and larger mammals that compete for the same space, like deer.
Okay, thanks so much. And Gurmania says, is it okay to beat a cow to death? If not, why eat beef? Maybe this is a challenge to Kaz or to people who eat beef more broadly. We'll let you speak for it, Kaz.
No, I don't think it's okay to beat a cow to death. I think that's, like I tried to make clear in my arguments, creating more suffering is not a good thing, but it's the distinction, the fact that they have a different utility. That's the reason they are capable, that it's okay to eat them. But it doesn't make it okay to be cruel. Cruelty as a practice is never helpful to our species for our survival in the first place.
Even if you're committing it against another species?
Any cruelty as a in a vacuum, if you just take the concept of cruelty and you practice that in any capacity, you're reducing our potential for survival.
Okay, do you think it's cruel to kill an animal that wants to live?
Sure.
Okay, so why aren't you vegan?
How do you know that they want to live?
Okay, I'm pretty sure if they knew what a gun was and I pointed at them, they'd run. Like, I mean, they
Well,
run away from predators, correct?
well, then how do you know that plants don't want to live?
Because they're not sentient and they just sit there, regardless of what
They just
happens to
sit
them.
there, sure, but we don't know that they're not sentient.
Yeah,
We
we do.
don't. We can't
Okay,
even.
well,
We can't even
listen.
begin.
Well, listen,
We can't even begin to understand their
that's
experience.
completely tangential to the idea that,
You
it's
you're
cruel to
using
kill
a
an
very
animal.
limited
That's completely
empathetic model,
tangential. Okay, let's assume that plants are sentient. That doesn't make it okay to kill animals.
but it doesn't. Where do you draw the line? I don't understand. If you can't empathize with a
That's
creature, then it's okay to
tangential.
kill it. That's what you're
That's
saying.
tangential to the issue. How does that make it okay to kill an animal?
Your argument is that if you can't empathize with the creature, it's okay to eat it.
What I want to do is I
No.
want to give Richard a chance to respond to what you had just said, Kaz, and then after that, Kaz, I'll give you a chance to respond to this original question. Then we'll have to move to the next one.
Yeah, what I'm saying is, if you recognize any form of cruelty as wrong, and you recognize it as wrong to take away the life of a being that wants to live, then I don't see how you could say, I don't see how you could keep eating meat. It sounds contradictory to me.
I don't see how you can
And
continue to live.
Or
and
Kaz, I want
okay.
to returning back to this question that they said, if it's not okay to beat a cow to death, then why eat beef? So we'll give you one chance, and then we got to move forward, short and pithy.
It is okay to eat beef. It is not okay to beat them to death.
Gotcha.
Why not?
And stupid whore energy strikes again. She says bacteria can exchange signals. It's called quorum sensing. I think this is regarding whether or not there can be communication. And she's saying like even bacteria can communicate. If you want to
Yeah,
respond, Kaz, you can. Otherwise,
Did you want to respond?
No, that's my point that I'm trying to
Okay.
make.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, communication doesn't imply consciousness. Again, consciousness is a very specific thing. It's the ability to have a subjective experience. So, in layman terms, it's the ability to feel. Something doesn't necessarily have to feel something to be able to communicate. Your computer is a great example of this. Just because your computer can communicate with other devices, other computers, that doesn't mean it can feel. So you're conflating two different things. You're conflating communication with sentience.
Hold on. Can I say something to that?
Sure.
A computer cannot communicate. A computer is a tool of communication. Like my tongue does
No,
not
it can
communicate.
communicate.
I use my tongue to communicate.
No, your computer can communicate. It can communicate with different devices. It can communicate with other computers. So no, it can't.
Ultimately, any communication a computer does requires a human being to initiate it, even if
No,
it's
that's not
back in the
true.
programming
You can,
stages.
No, that's not true. You can develop an AI, and you can program an AI to do certain things and actually communicate.
Okay, so are we
Look,
saying
Google
that
has
AIs are
created-
not sentient?
No, AIs are not
AIs
sentient. No, AIs are not sentient. Google has created
And they will never be.
an AI. No, there's a debate going on right now about what causes sentience in the artificial intelligence community, and right now, a lot of the debate is centered around whether or not there needs to be a certain type of matter in these sorts of machines for sentience to exist. But no, just because something can communicate, that doesn't mean it's actually conscious. So
That's where
what you just said, okay, well, listen, what you just said is just completely false. Google has created an AI. You can actually Google it right now and go to the type of program. You can try to have a communication with this artificial speech AI. So that doesn't mean it's actually conscious. It's
so if one day you have a robot that says,
I hate to do this, Cass, but just we have to keep, because we have a number of questions
we
yet.
can debate this later, dude. So don't worry about it.
You're right.
Yeah, and by the way, folks, a shortcut, instead of keeping, I mean, we'll still tweet it out in Facebook post their debate, but if you subscribe to their channels, then you'll probably hear about it even more directly. So their links are in the description, friendly reminder. And Andrew T says, tell Richard and Jasmine I said hi. Next, one last one. Where is it? We've got another one like that. Or no, this is a coming at you hard, Kaz. Adam Elbilia says, Kaz, is it that hard to admit that it's indeed immoral, but sadly you don't care enough about it? I'm saying it as a carnivore myself.
I don't know if I wasn't clear, but the way that we kill animals is immoral. But I think even VeganGains admitted that certain instances of eating meat are not immoral. So I mean, we have arbitrary lines that we're drawing between us, but I don't think that the situation is so clear that I must admit anything.
Next, thanks for your question from Gurmania asks, even if plants were sentient, we would still be morally justified to eat them because it's out of necessity, whereas we humans don't have to eat meat.
Yeah,
You don't have to eat plants.
Well, you do. Like, okay,
No,
so
you can die. You can choose to die.
Look, assuming that we have an interest in living, then we are going to have to make that sort of moral choice. And if we're going to even give you that plants are sentient, I mean, I could very easily argue that plants aren't as sentient as animals.
Yes.
I could very
I agree with
easily
that.
argue that the amount of suffering caused by eating plants is far less than eating meat. And if you care about plant lives, the majority of our plant agriculture actually gets used to feed the animals you eat. So you'd actually end up causing more plant deaths by eating meat. So in either case, the whole plants are sentient thing, it doesn't actually help the whole carnist argument that, it's okay to eat meat.
Gotcha. And thanks for your question. This one's coming from Earl of Sandwich. Says, pet owning animal eaters, can I kill and eat your pet? I'll pay you for it. Come on. Gotcha. And thanks. Oh, wait, let's see. Do we have, that might be it. Let me just double check just to be sure I didn't miss any. And so want to say, folks, really appreciate it. This is always fun. These guys are a pleasure to have on. And let's see, Donnie Darko, thanks for your super chat. And Nir Kadir, thanks for yours. Didn't see anything written, but really appreciate the support. And Phil the Logician, thanks for your question. Said, Rich, how do you feel when you see babies in strollers?
Well, I have certain urges. I just try to avoid them, though. I have a phobia of children. I think it's called pedophobia, where they actually make me really anxious and nervous, and I have a weird irrational fear of children, so I just try to avoid them.
Gotcha.
Are you going to have children one day?
No, I got a vasectomy, so.
Gotcha. And Mayor Kadir, thanks for your question that just flew in. Said, statement said, plants react and don't respond, thus not sentient, right? Also, painless killing in human context is wrong because of desire to live.
Is it?
Yeah. Okay. So he meant, so this is going to be something that we're going to have to debate, but I think he is making at least like some fair point with the plant sentience thing. It's kind of ridiculous to think that all plants would be sentient just because you can find a few. There are plants that don't communicate, don't respond to stimuli. I think the majority of the ones we eat, they're not comparable to things like Venus flytraps. And what is it? Yeah, a big aspect of why it's wrong to kill is because the animal or being you're killing doesn't want to be killed. That's one big reason why we think it's wrong to kill people. So, and that's why we think it's okay to mercy kill people who want to die because they're in horrible pain. Animals, for the most part, aren't in that situation, at least not the ones we eat. So I think that's one of the big reasons why it's wrong.
Gotcha. And King Carb also says, hi, Richard. A lot of fans of there. So we really appreciate these guys. It's been a true pleasure, folks. Want to say thanks for all your questions. And oh, wait, no, we do, if you guys forgive me for 1 sec. Francesca King was like, she was asking a lot of questions. So I want to ask at least one. Is asked, what would be the least economically devastating way to transition from animal farming?
So right now, a lot like animal farming is really beneficial for the economy. A lot of people make good money off of animal farming. There are certain big cash crops right now. Palm oil is a big one. There are obviously environmental issues with palm oil, but I just say with the transition to a plant-based diet, chances are there's going to be a big surge in demands for mock meats, and what's probably going to become the big cash crops are going to be things like soybeans, different types of peas that they use for the pea protein and some of these meat substitutes. So I think that would probably be a pathway anyway to offset that economic issue. And
Gotcha.
one thing I do want to mention too, I mean, animal farming is a huge economic issue, as we've seen with the coronavirus. It's lost how many trillions of dollars to the worldwide economy. So avoiding close contact with animals by any means, including in agriculture, in the long term would be economically beneficial.
Gotcha. Thank you very much. And with that, thanks so much to these guys. They're linked in the description, as I mentioned, folks. And with that, want to say thanks, folks. We will be back tomorrow with a debate on good old flat Earth, so that should be fun. And so with that, keep sifting out the reasonable from the unreasonable. And one last thanks and goodbye to VeganGains and Kaz. Appreciate you guys being here.
Thank you, James. Thank you, VeganGains.
Thanks.
Absolutely. With that, take care, folks. Have a great rest of your night.
Okay, are we off?
We are off.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so Kaz, just message me on Twitter. I'm VeganGains on Twitter, and I'll just respond to
totally,
you.
man.
And
let me just say, man,
soon.
I do want to just say that I respect the way that you present your arguments, the way that you try to source information and use data. And I wish that I could, I don't know. It's very intangible the way I feel about this. I don't know how to explain it. And maybe you were there at some point before you became a vegan. I don't know. But yeah, that's what I want to say.
Yo, dude, like, we can set up a time where we have, like, hours and hours and hours to do a debate, and we can focus on, like, one specific topic, like plant sentience, or we could go over some of the things we kind of missed in this debate. So
yeah, I'd love to just take it very slowly, one point at a time, answer everything to each other, you know?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, just message me on Twitter, and we can get a debate set up in the next few days if you want.
All right, man. Sounds good.
All right,
Thank you.
All right, well, take care.
Thanks, guys. Have a great night.
Okay, so that was pretty interesting. Didn't go exactly like I thought it would, but for the most part, yeah, for the most part, I wasn't expecting much anyway. Let me just turn on notifications. There we go. Yeah, so, like, here's the thing. The main issue with a lot of people who say, like, eating meat is fine, what they always run into is that any excuse they give will inevitably end up taking away human rights, which is pretty much what happened. He tried to weasel out of things by saying, oh, if it's it's because it's a different species. Well, okay, if we had a hypothetical scenario where a supposed human that you thought was human had its humanity taken away, like we changed its genes, would that be okay to, kill that thing? Then he said no. Then he'd use language, and then he had a very weird, loose definition of language, which would actually make it immoral to kill animals. It was very strange. But yeah, there were a few points that we didn't actually have a chance to go over. He mentioned some stuff about nutrition, like choline, nutrient supplementation. He also mentioned invasive species, so that would be kind of cool to go over in the next debate. But
this is a test donation for $8.
But yeah, that wasn't great. Humble Bean donated. Holy shit! What the fuck? Oh, that fly is huge. Humble Bean donated $2. UFC 251 predictions/thoughts. I have no idea. Okay, just a
Kaz reached
second.
into the 7th dimension and wrecked you with this zinger. I could be wrong about this, lol.
Yeah, the 4th dimensional way of looking at things. Like, you can only tackle, like, one thing at a time, and, if he wants to add certain, like, exceptions to things, like, he has to mention that, and then we can involve that in the whole moral equation, but... Yeah, I mean, it ended up going to a route where he, like, basically had to say, yeah, I mean, if everyone agrees that this is right, then it's right. Like, oh yeah, slavery's fine. It's kind of insane. Like, none of the excuses really made any sense. But he wasn't the worst person I debated, not by a long shot. Thanks for the donation, though, iPhone Musings. Yeah, so Humble Bean, I'm not sure about UFC 251 predictions. I know Masvidal is fighting. Maybe he'll win. The guy who's fighting is pretty big and tough, but Masvidal is a pretty tough dude himself, so I'm not sure. Yeah, I really don't know. But thanks, Humblebean. George donated €2. He asks, which foods would you recommend for better brain function and general brain health? Yours is clearly on another level with the amount of information you retain. P.S. How's calisthenics training? So, just a generally healthy diet is going to help with brain health. There's not really any particular foods that are going to boost brain health. I would say any diet that is good for cardiovascular function is going to be good for long-term brain health. So avoiding saturated fat, eating a zero cholesterol diet, eating lots of fruits and vegetables and lots of beans and legumes, very high fiber foods that are heart healthy. That's going to be very good for long-term brain health. One of the reasons you have cognitive decline over time is because of impaired blood flow to the brain. Also making sure you get plenty of sleep. Sleep is massively important for brain health and prevention of Alzheimer's. And one very, very important thing for brain health is weight training, high resistance exercise. So training your nervous system by lifting with very heavy weights, that is also very good for brain health and maintains cognitive function. And on top of that, just making sure your brain stays busy, reading, learning new things. It's sort of if you don't use it, you lose it sort of thing. So make sure you don't, I don't know, become a moron who just watches reality TV all day. Make sure you engage in challenging activities for your brain. So learn new things, learn new languages, do things that you're not used to, things like that. And how's calisthenics training going? Not great at the moment because I hurt my back. It's weird. It's a reoccurring injury. I'm not sure exactly what it is. It might be a problem with my ribs. I don't know. It's in a very strange spot. But I've taken a few days off. Hopefully in the very near future, it gets better and I can go back to training though. But thanks, George. Isaac NuttleXfield donated $2. Why can't cows just learn to speak? Lol. Yeah, this idea he had where cows can just out of nowhere learn to speak if we give them enough time is just absolutely bizarre. I don't think he understands how, like, evolution works and how, like, languages are developed. It's kind of weird. But, yeah, I don't even understand, like, with the idea he had of, like, what language is. He thought language was just words. Thank you, sweetie. He thought language was basically just words. And if you're going to use that sort of standard for language, then, I mean, animals can speak. It's just that they're not speaking the same language. And when a cow moves in a very angry, violent way, that's it telling you that it doesn't want something to happen to them. So I don't even think it matters. Like, I don't see how it matters. I mean, there's plenty of people who can't speak. So it's really, again, it's a really weird, bizarre position. But thanks, Isaac NettleXfield. David Son donated $2. One day cows will provide entrance into his fourth dimension. I mean, hopefully, if we have like I don't know how cows are gonna, I mean, contribute to some sort of amazing scientific breakthrough, but yeah, I guess it would be pretty fantastic to be able to break into the fourth dimension and travel through time. I don't see cows doing that, and I don't know why we have to kill and eat them to do that, but that would be great, wouldn't it? Thanks for the donation, though, David. Bale150 donated $202. Richard, amazing debate. That guy was really honest and charitable. You could tell he was listening intently to what you were saying and admitted when his arguments didn't work.
I don't watch a lot of your debates. But what do you think of saying you could argue a person isn't sentient due to the problem with philosophical zombies, due to the same logic?
Okay, I'll get to that in a second. I think you planted seeds in the sky and did great. Thanks for speaking for animals. All right, well, thanks, Bale. I think he's an alright guy. He was pretty honest throughout the debate.
Kaz was pro-cancel culture on another debate a few days ago. Shout out to Monkey, Pretzel, and Bunny.
Yeah, iPhone musings, that's interesting. I didn't realize he was pro-cancel culture. Maybe I could have a series of debates with this guy. I don't know. But yes, as always, shout out to your cats, Monkey, Pretzel, and Bunny, but especially Pretzel. I think he's the cutest. Thanks for the donation, though, iPhone Musings. Yeah, so I think Kaz, I think he's a fairly honest dude. I don't think he had any bad intentions. Certain parts of the debate, he ended up conflating a lot of things and kind of, I don't know, mushing up the discussion, but I don't think he had any bad intentions with that. So I'm looking forward to another debate with the guy, but thanks, Bale. Okay, there's another one coming up.
His opening statement was fucking insane, lol. How did you even keep up with that?
Vibs Cartel. I wrote down what he said and made a list just so that I wouldn't forget, because he had a lot of things going on there, and I just wanted to tackle them one by one. Just because of the way the conversation went, some of the things at the bottom of his list came first and everything, but yeah, it's good during a debate just to write out a list of things that people say, just because it is hard to keep up with, so many different things. I think he mentioned like 5 or 6 different reasons for why he didn't didn't agree with the whole, vegan ideology, at like 5 or 6 at least. So yeah, I just write things down, and then, once one thing is covered, just go on to the next thing. This fly around me is insanely annoying. But thanks, Viz Cartel. God. I'm gonna try to herd it outside. Ninja Turtle Edic donated $6. I don't watch a lot of your debates, but what do you think of saying you could argue a person isn't sentient due to the problem with philosophical zombies? Do the same logic. What do you mean philosophical zombies? I've never heard of that term. I think what you mean is solipsism, whether or not you can determine anything is true outside of your own mind. So the issue here is you have to make some amount of fundamental assumptions. If you're going to create a moral system where you regard other people around you as sentient because they share similar physical properties as you, they look the same, they have a brain, nervous system, they behave in very similar ways. If you're going to make that sort of assumption that someone else should have moral consideration because they're similar to you, then you are also going to have to apply that consistently to animals, because animals also have a brain, nervous system. Many of their behaviors are similar to our own. A lot of them have very similar social structures. So I guess that's how I would deal with that problem. But thanks, Ninja Turtle Tyke. Yeah. Soluminati donated $2. Didn't know there's different types of proteins, LMAO. He seemed like a cool dude, though. There's different types of amino acids, but there are no, it's not that chickens produce unique amino acids to us, and cows produce unique amino acids. None of that is true. I don't know what the hell he meant by unique proteins. I do know that certain animals like jellyfish, because they have certain properties like bioluminescence, they do produce unique proteins. But things like cows, chickens, pigs, they don't have some sort of unique protein that could lead to some sort of miraculous scientific breakthrough in the future. That's kind of a ridiculous idea. But thanks for the donation, Illuminati, appreciate it. Rookster donated $2. I think you have to apply more pressure when you ask him questions, it seems. He gives a lot of non-answers because the questions put him in a problematic situation. Exhaust the question till you get an answer. Other than that, great work. I made sure he responded to the questions. Could I have done a better job of pressuring him? Maybe. I know a lot of people... they keep complaining that I interrupt, and I just wanted to make sure I didn't do that for this debate. So maybe I just wanted to make sure I wasn't talking over him, and then once I got a chance to speak, I just reiterate can you answer the question, and I don't know. But thanks anyway, dude. Thanks, Ruxter. Appreciate that. Okay. Any last questions or comments? I'm gonna end the stream in just a couple minutes. God damn it, this fucking fly. Flies are the most annoying goddamn creatures, I swear. Yeah, insects suck. I'm sorry, but if I see a roach, it's not getting any love or compassion from me. When I see beetles, I just pick them up and put them outside. Once it gets to a point where there's a potential infestation, then I don't care. Like they're dying. But yeah, I don't love insects. I try not to kill them. I try my best not to. I just put them outside. Thoughts on birds of prey overall? Those are very strange questions. I've gotten that question before. It's like a troll. But I mean, I think they're cool. It's a shame they have to kill other birds. Bailey Odino donated $2. His overall etiquette was mostly respectful, but his unwillingness to concede to points and trailing off was frustrating. The plant sentience thing, man.
I was a little confused why you said you would be okay eating wild unfertilized eggs. Could you elaborate more?
Okay, I'll get to that in a moment. So, yeah, the unwillingness to concede that, like, just because something can communicate, that doesn't necessarily imply sentience. That was probably the most frustrating one. The whole plants feel pain thing, oh my god. He's claiming that he can support his claims. He just wasn't prepared for that aspect of the debate. So whatever. We'll just debate that in the future. But I don't know. I doubt he'll actually be able to find any kind of research. I think I know what he's looking at, and he's misinterpreting, communication as sentience. But thanks for the donation, Bailey Adino. Appreciate it. Vibs Cartel donated $5. A little confused when you said you'd be okay with eating wild unfertilized eggs. Could you elaborate? So, in a hypothetical situation where, let's say, there were wild birds and they had unfertilized eggs that would never hatch, and they weren't tending to them, they weren't going to eat them. Let's say a bird laid an egg, it was unfertilized, flew away somewhere else, had no intention of eating it, and it was unfertilized, so it would never hatch. There was no moral issue that I could see from doing that. I wouldn't do it personally because it's just a dumb, bad idea. But the issue with eating eggs, today is exploitation and murder. These chickens are exploited, they're bred, they're used for their egg-laying ability, they're selectively bred so that they lay way more eggs than they naturally would. They're eventually murdered. All of those issues make, egg eating bad. If you were to remove all of the bad, immoral aspects of the egg industry, then there's nothing morally wrong with it. So there's your explanation, Vibs Cartel. Appreciate the donation. I wouldn't encourage anyone to eat wild bird eggs as a moral alternative, because you're never going to come across that sort of situation in real life. Dario donated $2. If you could go back in time and speak to anyone in history, it doesn't have to be a well-known historical figure. Assuming you could speak their language, who would you speak to? What would you talk about? I think I'd speak to Leonardo da Vinci. He interests me more than any other historical figure because he is like one person who really sticks out to me as being way, way the fuck ahead of his time. He had ideas for airplanes, helicopters, tanks, cars. He was thinking of way, way far off modern inventions, and he created so many, he had inventions for so many different war machines. I think he was trying to create some sort of machine where he could wipe out most of humanity because he was so sick of people who were so fucking stupid. So I think he was someone who should have been born in the 21st century, who unfortunately ended up, I can't remember what century he was born in, but ended up just having to live in this backwards, bigoted, dumb, narrow-minded, time period where nobody could fucking understand anything he was saying, and it'd just be really fascinating to get into his head and understand what the fuck he had to go through. So that's why. But thanks for the donation, Dario. There have been a number of really brilliant scientists who've created these death machines, basically. like Einstein created the nuclear bomb. I know Tesla, he had a bunch of inventions for weapons. Da Vinci, he had just an insane amount of ideas for weapons. So yeah, I wonder if there's just a thing with smart people where they have this like murderous nature because they just can't fucking stand everybody around them. Do you have any critique against the Game Changers documentary? Not really. It was all pretty sound. Like, maybe just the way certain things were presented, but like the actual science behind it, no, not really. In the 15th century, you could get killed for saying the Earth is round. When did Leonardo da Vinci live? Let me look that up. Born 1452, so 15th century. Jesus Christ. Man. Favorite Ninja Turtle, Leonardo, question mark. No, my favorite Ninja Turtle is Raphael. I like his anger and intensity, and I thought the original live-action Ninja Turtles movie was pretty fucking good for how they captured, like, the character of the Turtles. It was really neat. I wouldn't have, like, you wouldn't have expected that from, you know, what's essentially a kid's movie. You could tell that some of, like, especially Raphael, he had, like, deep emotional issues, and he just wanted to, like, lash out. I kind of, like, identify with that aspect of his character. Did you change your mind about Flat Earth after the debate? I am even more sure that the world is round. Into retro games, question mark. Yep, I'm into retro games. I especially like Neo Geo games, old arcade games. Big fan of the Metal Slug series, but I love Marvel vs. Capcom, the original 2 games. Capcom vs. SNK, that was also a really good series. I will make sure I watch Darwin's Theory. Is Tory Washington natty? Probably not. If I had to guess, I think he's on a little bit of PEDs, or was at one point. What's your position on free will? It's hard to determine either way. My personal belief is that we have free will, but we have a very limited ability to express free will. Okay, I think I'm going to end the stream here. Hope you guys enjoyed the debate. Big thanks to everyone who donated in Streamlabs. Really appreciate that. And as always, keep making those vegan gains.